Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to the Daily Huddle. My daughter is excited about the good morning. Everybody's excited about being in the Daily Huddle. Thank you all for being here. I am truly excited to be your host. You're not helping. This is live. This is not TV. Thank you, Maya. You're making it awesome. Thank you all for being here. This is a really great morning. And today we have a phenomenal conversation. I can't wait to get it started. My name is Giovanni Gonzalez. I co-host of Daily Huddle. And I get to introduce one of my favorite human beings in the planet, the co-host of the Daily Huddle, and the #1 executive coaching expert, Mr. Sorrel Catan. Good morning, Sorrel. How are you?
Giovanni, I am doing fantastic. How are you, my friend? You are the number one. You are the #1 transformational leadership coach, and it is my honor to co-host the Daily Huddle with you and lead the type of conversations and create the space for the type of context that leave people in life, living the life they love, and making phenomenal decisions that benefit their businesses, their families, and their communities. And today I have the pleasure of introducing a good friend of mine, Mr. James M. Bailey. Jay, welcome. Good morning. I want to say a few things about you, and I want the world to know why I'm saying them. See, Jay's got the biggest, longest resume ever, and I'm so proud of it. I'm proud of it for this reason. The way Jay shines gives you the permission, the right to shine just as bright. Brother Jay, thank you for leading the way and creating the space for us, each of us, to shine. Jay's committed to living by his personal motto: build as we climb. Change agent, thought leader, entrepreneur, and emerging philanthropist, James M. Bailey has dedicated his life to serving others. James is now the president and CEO of the Russell Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship, honoring his great legacy of vision, business leadership of Herman J. Russell. Jay's leading the development of the largest center in America, driven by community impact, devoted to empowering African-American entrepreneurs and small business owners. Dig this, over 50,000 square feet, designed to inspire ideas, create jobs, grow companies, and increase wealth in the community. That is Jay. Jay's right here from Atlanta, and a diehard Bulldog fan. Brother, I won't hold that against you.
You can't.
I need to show around Gainesville, Florida sometime.
No worries, brother. Don't get lost.
James has a proven track record of success, recognized by 3 U.S. presidents for his leadership and community efforts. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I give you the president and CEO of the Russell Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship, Mr. James M. Bailey. Jay, good morning and welcome.
Good morning, brother. I need to take you on the road with me, man. That's the best introduction I've had in a while. I appreciate it. So good morning to all. It is good to be here. And so Sorrel and Giovanni, how do we get into it? Are we going to ask questions? I know you sent me the one question, Sorrel, but you tell me on the flow.
Here's how you get into it, Jay. Given the role that you're playing at the Russell Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship, we crafted this question. How does entrepreneurship impact the socio-economic landscape today and in the future? And I know the Russell Center is having a tremendous impact. I know your commitment to that impact, your commitment to shaping the socio-economic landscape for African-American entrepreneurs and for all people. And we'd love to get behind the curtains of your brain and dig into the impact that you're committed to.
You know, I think, Sorrel, the best way I can answer that question is to talk about my story. For everybody in the call, and thank you, Mary Pat and Maria Sangria, for greeting me this morning first when you were here early. I'm the kid that started his first business at 12. I bought my first house at 19. I made my first million by the time I was 25. I did not have good money role models. I didn't have a lot of people to show me direction. So I went from living in a 10,000 square foot home to literally living in a 9x9 storage facility, homeless, by the time I was 28. It was at that point that I realized by the world standards I had been successful, but I had zero significance, and I had done nothing to put a dent in this world. And as I started to chase significance, I started to climb the ladder again, and committed to significance, going from homelessness in 3 years. I was running a $30 million nonprofit organization in 10 countries. I happened to retire from nonprofit life about 3.5 years ago to start my own company. But then I got this opportunity with the H.J. Russell Center. But to your question, I grew up here, right outside Atlanta in Decatur, Georgia. Not the really nice side of Decatur where many of you guys may go to brunch or something like that. Come a little further south and you start to hit the deck, and that's where I'm from. I was a horrible student. I treated school like construction work. When the bell rang, give me my lunch pail, take off my hard hat, I'm going home, don't bother me until tomorrow. Terrible student, but really, really smart, branded, gifted in kindergarten. I used to drive my teachers and my parents nuts because I had all this potential. I just wouldn't apply it to academics. But I always had hustle. I was the kid that used to sell popsicles in the ice. I made out of ice in the ice tray in my driveway. I was so cold with it, guys. I used to literally charge kids 50 cents to fight in my backyard so they wouldn't get caught in the front yard. I had all of this economic energy, didn't really know what it was. And one day I'm riding my bike to the barber shop because I was a latchkey kid. Both my parents were working class folks, street full of boys who got into all kind of trouble. When we came home, no one was home until late in the evening. So I'm riding my bike to the barber shop on Candler Road. And when I was growing up, man, you could have put a Bentley next to a Ferrari, next to a Mercedes, and I would have taken a Mustang GT 5.0 every day of the week. So as I'm pulling up to the barbershop, I see parked illegally right in front of the barbershop a black on black convertible Mustang GT 5.0, and I lost my mind. I'm 11 years old, and I'll never forget it. I threw my bike down in an area of town you don't leave anything unlocked. I ran in the barbershop, and I screamed out, "Whose car is that?" My barber's cutting somebody's hair, and he kind of gives me the nod. That's a universal brotherhood symbol for that's me. And immediately when I made the connection that my barber owned that car, I knew that he was a drug dealer because I didn't know anybody that made the kind of money that could afford that car. So curiously, when I hopped in his chair, just as matter of fact, as I'm asking him about the weather, I'm like, "John, I didn't know you were a dope boy." And he screamed at me, used a big F word too, "Shut the up, turn around. And you count how many chairs you see in the shop." And I said, "I don't know, 10. He said, "Well, each one of these barbers pays me $50 a week to cut hair in my shop. Do the math, Jay, you're smart." This is the early 80s. So I started doing the math. He says, "Hold on, before you finish, brother, I got 2 more shops just like this. Finish the math." So I was like, little J Bailey, I was smart. I wasn't, I just didn't like school, but I was smart. So like 0, 0, 0, comma, 0, carry the 1. And he said it. He said, "Son, I'm an entrepreneur. I own my own business, and what you need to do is go find you something you love and make money doing it." At that point, at 11 years old, no one had even given a name to what I always had been, an entrepreneur, had never heard it before. Secondly, nobody had ever really given me the perspective of ownership and what that meant. So when my bike ride home fundamentally changed my life, I looked at everything differently. Who owns the tire shop? Who owns the McDonald's? Who owns the public library? Mom, Dad, do we own our house? We do? We own it? This grass is our grass? Then I'd fight some kid if they're trying to cut through my grass because I had the pride of ownership. These concepts stayed with me, and little did my barber know, just whispering that in my ear at 11 literally changed my trajectory for the rest of my life. My big love, my role models were not Maynard Jackson and Martin Luther King. Back then, my role models were based on somebody's ability to shake the walls of my house when they drove by. I was enamored by big speakers and car audio. If you gave me a book a page thick, 1 page for homework, I'm not reading it. If you gave me a book 1,000 pages thick on how to rewire a Honda Accord, I'd read it cover to cover. Don't bother me. I'm zoned in. So literally after school every day, I started to hang out at all the local speaker shops. I used to take the bus up to Circuit City and hi-fi buys. I used to sweep around at the flea market that was on Camden Road that had a car stereo shop, and I learned. It was like an apprenticeship. And I taught myself how to sell car stereo, install car stereo equipment. One day I stole a magazine. I guess statute of limitations is passed on that. That's several years ago. But it was an insider magazine around car audio. I read it cover to cover. And there was an advertisement in the magazine that I did not understand because I had also memorized the pricing at all the stores. And in this book, a speaker that I knew cost $100 in the store. This book said I could get one for $50, and it didn't make any sense. So now I'm 12 years old. That Monday, I called the 1-800 number, trying to disguise my voice like I'm a 25-year-old man. And God must have sent me the right customer service agent because that patient woman sat there and explained the whole concept of wholesale and retail. And it made sense. It clicked. It lined up like the Matrix. Worst beating that I ever got was when I needed inventory to start my business. I knew that my dad, who worked nights many times, had this little magical plastic card. And if you put it in the machine and punch in his 4 numbers, money would come out. So I took his card and I rode my bike to the Tilly machine, that's what it was called back then, and literally took out $400. Now, mind you, this is the 80s. My dad was a postal clerk. So $400 on his weekly check was probably more than half of it. So once he caught up and found that I had taken the money, he started to get at me. And he stopped. We both cried, but that was the start of the House of Boom. On the side of my house, I used to install Boom, and I could beat out everybody's prices because I had no overhead. I got really good at it. But here's the knock-on effect when you talk about the socio-economic impact of entrepreneurship. The knock-on effect is because I wanted to be successful and aspirationally in running a good business, my aspiration to be successful in my business meant my need for education. I wasn't going to school anymore for my teachers nor my parents. I was going to school to make sure I understood, because if we had STEM education back then, that's what it was. I had to understand ohms and wattage and how to build a speaker enclosure that was a cubic foot of airspace. That'd be called STEM education today. So my aspiration meant my need for education. School became relevant to me. I took off. AP Calculus, AP Physics, all of these courses that had weighted GPAs allowed me to raise my grade point average just enough to attend the University of Georgia. Had I not had my business, that never would have happened. As we talk about this thing entrepreneurship, and why I made a very strict promise to my wife when I left my last job. I used to run an organization called Operation Hope. Because I knew the only real pathway to freedom, the only real pathway to wealth was through entrepreneurship and taking ideas and making them real. I made a very deliberate and intentional promise to her by the riverside. We prayed over it, and I made her promise that I'd never take another job again. But I had to break that promise when I got this opportunity. When we talk about socioeconomic impact, let's talk about Herman J. Russell. And just a quick history lesson for everybody on the call. Herman J. Russell was born in Summerhill, Georgia. He stood about 5'10" with a severe speech impediment, but by the 80s, he had created the 4th largest African-American owned business in the history of America. This is the brother that integrated the Chamber of Commerce at the city of Atlanta and the state of Georgia. This is the brother that underwrote the civil rights movement in Southwest Atlanta as a development community. He bought a cattle farm and with 600 families built a community called Collier Heights, modeling it after a Black Beverly Hills, because in those days, Black people couldn't live north of Peyton Road in Atlanta. There was an actual barrier preventing Black people from living north of it, a barrier, a wall. He broke down that wall by building a dignified community for African Americans to live in. He had a pool inside his house in the 40s, guys. This is where a young Martin Luther King used to go over and swim and hang out and talk about how he wanted to change the world. The only big civil unrest that we had in Atlanta was on the student campuses at Morehouse, Clark, and Spelman. 100 students got locked up. They could make one phone call and one man bailed them all out. He built half of our skyline. And to this day, even after his death, H.J. Russell and Company is the largest African-American owned construction firm in the country. Concessions International, which is our hospitality, restaurant, airport concessions company, is number 6 overall. And we talk about the generational impact of this man. Any of the developers in the Southeast that have done more than 50 million in revenue, all came through Russell University. C.D. Moody, T. Dallas Smith, Noel Khalil, Egbert Perry, any of the highest grossing African-American developers in the Southeast, 90% of them got their start at H.J. Russell. But it is a testament to this guy, and even the building that we're building, Sorrell, you mentioned the 50,000 square feet to give everybody on the Crow segregated South. Building a headquarter building that is a full city block long and 50,000 square feet. It's almost impossible today. And he built it intentionally on a hill directly across the street from the AUC campuses, Morehouse, Clark, and Spelman. Because in those days, students weren't allowed to go to Georgia Tech. They weren't allowed to go to the University of Georgia. For African-American students, their choices were limited, so he built his headquarters directly across his epicenter of campuses, not just to run his company, but to be a symbol to the community of what is possible. When we talk about big ideas and entrepreneurship, every company that we can name, including Zoom and everything, if you scan your room, from the speakers to the table, to the chair, to the carpet, to the frame of your house, is someone's idea made real. Every large company was once a small company. Before it was a small company, it was an idea. Entrepreneurship is at the very heart of our existence. This concept of taking the most powerful thing in the world, the power of an idea, and making it come to fruition is what allows all of us to be on this apparatus right now. So for me, when I think about entrepreneurship and innovation, I'm a firm believer that God equally distributes brilliance, talent, and genius. If you believe in any kind of spiritual being, you got to believe he or she puts it in every person everywhere, equally distributes it. So for those of you that are in Atlanta, or those that are in a different city, every city has a north side of the tracks and a south side of the tracks. Well, I think that the only difference between the north side of the tracks and the south side of the tracks is access, opportunity, and exposure. That's it. It's that simple. Kids in the north want to become doctors, lawyers, consultants, or run companies. Kids on the south side of the tracks want to be rappers, athletes, and dope dealers. You can't tell me they're not dumb. You can't tell me a drug dealer doesn't know what he's talking about. That kid is running an enterprise and he understands import, export, wholesale, retail, supply, demand, security, retention, logistics, all with a gun to his head and no formal training, no actual manual how to do it. I think the most innovative person on the planet is a single mother with 2 kids making $17,000 a year. How does she make it happen month after month for her kids and her family, continue to smile? You're talking about an innovative brain that has never had the access, opportunity, and exposure to take that brilliance that's in their brain and move it forward. So when we start talking about being at the nexus of access, opportunity, and exposure, to your question, Sorrell, about the socioeconomic impact of entrepreneurship, the data supports that the greatest closer of wealth gap is entrepreneurship and small business. And if we have all of these fundamentally brilliant people on the south side of the tracks in every city that don't have the access, opportunity, exposure, resources, connections, relationships to take those great ideas and problem-solving ideas and bring them to fruition, then we're losing GDP every year because only 40% of our population is actually contributing to the economy. In the city of Atlanta, it's my city, and it embarrasses me that we are the worst city in America for economic income inequality and economic mobility. We're the worst. A child born into poverty in Atlanta, Georgia, has less than a 4% chance of reaching the middle class or above. That's on our watch. But when I talk about race, guys, it's not from an emotional space. I think of it like an economist. That Atlanta is 54% African-American. And if you scan the demographics of the city of Atlanta, there are no poor white neighborhoods in the city of Atlanta. There are no failing Latino schools in the Atlanta public school system. There are no Asian ghettos in Atlanta. Almost 100% of the poverty driving those statistics happen to be African American. And if you want to create an economic development strategy to move a city forward without being very intentional and deliberate on focusing on that demographic most affected, you're being intellectually disingenuous in your approach to move the needle. This center now becomes this safe space to fail and fly for businesses to learn what they need to go from where they are to where they want to be. And you label me an expert for this call, but I tell you what, I'm smart enough to know that I'm not that smart. So just like a college model, I'm taking the building, the institution, that's not only just about education, because I can tell everybody on the call, did anybody have a good time in college? For the cameras that are on, you can just shake your head. Yep. So Andrea had a great time. This whole group, and we went over to the Spelman Morehouse homecoming. It's the most epic event that you'll ever go to. By the tens of thousands, alums come back and flood the streets celebrating their matriculation at Morehouse and Spelman. But if all of us did a social science experiment and asked 100 alums one question, tell me your experience at Morehouse or Spelman or the University of Georgia or the University of Florida or wherever you went, Andrea, or wherever you went, Mary Pat, not a single one of them would bring up a single class they took. It was not about the curriculum or the syllabus that was transformative for them. It was the community, the culture that was created, and the covenant of what it means to say, go Dogs, or go Gators, or whatever that little green thing y'all have down there in Florida is, Sorrel, or to say that I'm a Morehouse man, or say that I am a Spelman woman. Has nothing to do just with the books. If we look at the very same thing, socio-economic impact of entrepreneurship is rooted in community. And we're developing a community of collaborative support, bringing the best resources in the world under one roof. Because not only am I looking at how to teach entrepreneurs, we're attempt at growing businesses. We talk about the academics, we talk about the rubric, we talk about the programming, and we don't focus on the whole entrepreneur. Let's talk about the loneliness. Let's talk about the depression. Let's talk about all of the things that an entrepreneur has to endure. Now you multiply that by being a minority entrepreneur without access. And if we only focus on curriculum, we're going to miss the boat. The socioeconomic portion of what we're trying to do with the Russell Center has everything to do with how we move forward. Because now collectively, we are more powerful together. Because if I was an entrepreneur before, I didn't know if I had a phone call I could make or somebody that would even understand what I'm going through. This community allows me to have that now, in addition to the curriculum that teaches me how to do it better. It's going to be a powerful experiment. We're in year 2, and I've been overwhelmed. I'm still in the heart of a construction project, but I'm an entrepreneur at heart. So I was never going to let the perfect be the death of the good. And so we got started, even though we only had 1 floor built out. And I still had about a good 42,000 square feet to build out. But within that first year of opening our doors, we would see 1,500 people a week coming through our doors. And we're not even open. If you go to our website, rcie.org, it still says coming soon. This void of place and space, this safe space to fail and fly, is a problem that we are solving. This place that espouses hope when you walk through the doors is something that we're solving for. Because I believe the number one ingredient to success in business or anything else is a belief that it's possible. You got to start there. And for so many African-American entrepreneurs, just like me, when I was doing very well, and maybe that story will come out at a different time, but when I was doing very well in real estate, I didn't believe that I belonged at the next level. And I didn't have the role models or the roadmap how to manage the millions that I had in the bank, and I lost them all. That's the impact of, yeah.
You know, this is phenomenal. Thank you so much. And I'm interrupting only because I want the people in the studio audience to have an opportunity to connect with you.
For sure. I get past it, man. You got to rein me back in.
Yeah. Awesome. So Sheila James, you have your hand up first. Go ahead.
You know, I always have my hand up. Jay, that was just spectacular. Okay.
Thank you.
And, you know, God, I have 100 questions, but the one I really want to ask is where is the center? Can you say just a little bit more about the center?
Sure.
It's called the Entrepreneurial Center.
So the H.J. Russell Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship, RCIE, is the original headquarter building for H.J. Russell and Company.
Yeah.
Been in Atlanta, gone to Pascal's Restaurant, which is one of our restaurants as well. Directly across the street is this really huge brown building that we're redoing. And that's the Russell Center right on Northside Drive.
Yes. Okay, and that's okay, gotcha. Okay. Yep. And it's not open yet?
Well, it's soft open. So we are beta testing it with 120 entrepreneurs we work with on a daily basis. And when times were regular and we would convene, we were having anywhere from 10 to 15 strategy sessions, training sessions, programs during the week. But yeah, no, we're kind of soft opened, if you will.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Sheila. Anyone else? Andrea Villa.
Villa, you got it correct. Well, Jay, thank you so much for such an inspirational message. Your energy and your spirit is really, really invigorating. It's just, in particularly in the time of right now, today, what we're dealing with racism and the systematic issues that we're dealing, particularly people of color. I know I look white. I'm originally from Colombia, women. So my question goes related to how the Russell Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship could support people that are not just African American. I know that that's the focus, but I wanted just to clarify that we've experienced discrimination and difficulty of building our businesses, and it's good to have that sense of community. So can you expand a little bit about that sense of community and how it can be expanded to other races, ethnicities, gender, all of that?
So, you know, it's just like anything else. The reason that historically Black colleges and universities are still relevant is because there's a very need to have a deliberate focus. But there's no moat around those HBCUs saying that you can't come in. And certainly there's no sign at the Russell Center saying African American only. But we are very deliberate looking at the data to say this is where we need to focus. But Andrea, just like anything else, because we're so focused on disadvantaged communities, giving them the advantages to move forward, you know, the thing that's the great equalizer for all of us that have had disadvantaged opportunities, they're really, really similar. So the secret sauce that we create here for those that are disadvantaged in any way, what we create in this space is the perfect percolator and laboratory to see how I can serve you best. Because those same challenges you experience, but in this case, I'm a data-driven organization focused on a specific problem because poverty in Atlanta is Black. There almost is no other line to draw in the sand in the city of Atlanta. However, remember that we have this wonderful facility that can act as a convener for community that welcomes you to come in. Make no mistake, this is our focus, but come on, because if the community is going to be strong, it has to incorporate everybody. But I can't take my eye off the focus, but while I'm focused, we're rolling together.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that clarity. Thank you.
No, of course, of course. Any other questions?
Yes, Giovanni's got a question, and then we'll go to Ronald.
I actually go ahead, Ronald. I actually was going to say something else, but you already addressed it. Go ahead, Ronald. Hey,
thank you, Jay. I believe I might have heard you speaking before in one of those AIE activity. It's great. It is great. I think about a year ago I heard you speaking, but I was wondering about the Russell Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship. Is that going to be, will there be a curriculum in place, or is that somewhat of a hands-on university like Target for special program or special entrepreneur? I mean, every entrepreneur is special, but is there a curriculum in place with instructor, or is that?
Entrepreneur, I don't like building anything from scratch. So just like how you have freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, graduate school, PhD, alum, et cetera, it's the same thing. So if you come to me, the model that we've created is called Big Ideas: inspire, develop, execute, accelerate, sustain. So taking somebody from being curious about entrepreneurship to getting them with a concept. Once they have a concept, how do we get them from a concept to creating a company? When we have a company, how do we get you to customers? And once you have customers, how do you grow and scale? So literally each stage of the entrepreneur or small business's development has faculty affiliated with it, training, and we have our basic 5 constructs that we build against throughout. So it's a pretty organized platform that we're building, brother. When this 127 folks that we're working with now is kind of like our beta test of this curriculum that we're developing. But I wanted to be more than just a episodic program because we know entrepreneurship doesn't happen in 6-week increments. You can't say that you can take one course and know everything that you need to know. We got to look at a continuum of engagement for the life cycle of a business to make sure a company always has the support they need when they need it. So it's a match of curriculum, it's a match of business mentors, it's a match of outside training, it's a match of like self-guided instruction. So it's a mashup of all of those things to really incorporate the whole entrepreneur throughout the life cycle of that business, and you never graduate. It's like this circular economy with no waste that keeps going, because I want Sorrell to be in business for the next 20 years, and we've got to be a resource to his business for the next 20 years.
Great. Awesome, Jay. I think we have time for one last question to honor the participation of the people who are watching live on Facebook. The question is, how do you join and be a part of the RCIE?
Certainly. So go to our website now, rcie.org. I believe there's a button even in the Coming Soon website. We take on cohorts of what we call stakeholders. We don't even call them members, stakeholders. That are part. And so I believe in the 3rd quarter, maybe early 4th quarter, based on COVID, we'll be bringing in a new group of stakeholders, because again, we're a startup. We're a year and a half old. And so we're learning what we don't know, but we're taking and co-designing, because I'm a firm believer, guys, you don't build something for people without people, and you got to build it with them. And so we're learning from real entrepreneurs in real time and adjusting as we're flying the plane. But go to rcie.org. You can follow me on LinkedIn. I'm always there. It's kind of quasi email for me at Jane or Jay Bailey, I believe it is, on LinkedIn. But RCIE.org, there's a link, Sorrell, and they can click it and apply.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, it's 34 after. Jay, I want to pass it on to Giovanni right now to circle it around and give you the last word. Giovanni, go ahead.
Perfect. Thank you, Sorrell and Jay. That was a really powerful circle, a whole complete conversation around the possibility of entrepreneurship. So I really appreciate the depthness of your experience and also your vulnerability of just sharing your love for the community, right? And for the African-American community. One of the things that I really truly loved about what you're creating here in the conversation, that's kind of like I felt using you, is that phrase of being a symbol of what's possible. I really got that in your speaking, being a symbol of what's possible in the history that you're sharing with us. And also I want to put a little shout out to my university, which is Kennesaw State. I'm just saying, a lot of names being thrown, so I'm going to throw Kennesaw State to it in the
incredible business program, brother. Incredible business program.
But thank you, Giovanni. I look forward to be part of the Center of Innovation. I really got the communication you were saying about the focus. I'm committed to make a difference on what you were pointing to, and also including all communities as well. So, Jay, what is your last word for all of us?
It's a personal motto of mine. Plant seeds that will grow trees whose shade you may never sit under. Plant seeds that will grow trees whose shade you may never sit under. Little did that barber know when he was whispering in my ear that he changed that 11-year-old boy's life. Little did Herman Russell know as he was trying to build his businesses that thousands of people would be impacted by his efforts. What we do today affects 7 generations yet unborn. And what are we doing right now to make sure that we build as we climb? My personal motto. That building the stairs that allow people to get over the walls and the barriers that they face a little bit easier than you had it. Again, thanks so much, guys, for your time and allowing me to be here.
Thank you, Jay.
Thank you.
Have an amazing day. Thank you.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
See you guys later.
Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Have a great day.
Jay, did you drop your info in the chat?